Thanks everyone for being here. I'm David. My title at JavaGround was art director, which is sort of, compared to what I think of now, it's somewhere between what I would think of as a senior artist and an art manager. I did art, I managed outsourcing and stuff like that, and handled hiring. And I had a lot of fun working on Blood Plus. I just felt like we have to talk about it.
That's right.
Nick, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so I'm Nick Freshour, and I was the level designer on this project. My second ever professional game where I did level design. First one was Quantum of Solace from the same studio, and I actually came from QA and went on to do like regular game design, and then I got other design jobs. I'm actually not doing that anymore. Just a scrum master at a development company. But Blood Plus was great. And like I said, I think between that and Zombieland were probably my favorite.
Thought we did Zombieland.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's crazy.
Cool. Dan, you want to go next?
I'm Dan Plagle. I was one of the art monkeys, one of the crew that jumped on this thing and did various things. I did some boss art. I did poster design for the in-house graphics,
Which is right there.
I procured the somewhat reasonably official reference material for the game, which was the DVDs at the time. And I did some other random animation stuff. Like I think I did that shot of that monster there lurching. But yeah, so that's kind of my thing. And I basically now I'm mainly just doing comics and things like that. Next up.
Cool.
Jesse.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Jesse Simcoe, and I, too, was an artist working at JavaGround. My career in the game industry lasted 3 years, and this was sort of towards the middle end of it. And I had just completed another project, and I think I'd also just returned from vacation, and I saw that you guys were working on this, and without even asking the director of operations, I just took it upon myself to start making art for this game because I didn't want to be assigned to any other projects. So I just thought this looks like the coolest thing going on at JavaGround right now. And so it was already pretty well underway by the time I decided to appoint myself as like the fourth artist. And I just added some polish to it. There were so many levels and so many different backgrounds, and just this had a lot of content. So there was no shortage of stuff that I just decided to take another pass at drawing. And so I didn't add anything really original. I just made everything that was there look just like a little bit more refined, and had a fun time collaborating with you all on it.
Is it my turn next?
Your turn.
All right. So I'm Albert, and I was the programmer for this game, and right now I do cloud architect stuff. So like Jesse, my career in game development and in the game industry is like 3 to 4 years. After JavaGround, I don't think I worked in a game company. But still, it's still like a fun thing to do. Sometimes I wish someone I can go back. And the Blood Plus development was definitely the most fun. It's not too simple. It's complicated enough that makes it fun, but also that we're able, it actually feels like a full-blown game development team. We have the artists, we have multiple artists now, we have level designers, we have people like working on different things to make the game. Because before that, all of our games is like, I think like Casino Royale, where Ben was the programmer, also has to be doing the levels. And it's just such a minimalist team. But then Blood Plus was like, I think that one project where we actually have roles in the development team. And I thought that was like quite fun. And then the whole, I don't know how long it took us to build Blood Plus. I don't think it was even like it didn't feel that much stressful to me. Because like a lot of our projects in JavaGround just like deadlines and everything. It was quite stressful. But this one in particular, it wasn't too much going on, which is great. But it is still a complicated game.
I think it was less than a year from scratch, right? Well, I guess not from scratch, from
Spider-Man
code.
3.
Yeah, it was from Spider-Man 3, and then I added the whole engine thing so that we can have the dedicated level designers, so that I don't have to like, hey, we need that feature. Talk to Albert. Like, no, go away. Talk to Nick.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you wrote that whole like scripting language for me.
Yeah.
Like, that was
the first
great.
time we did that.
That's
and then,
awesome.
And that's like allows like so many possible things, right? All these like animations, cutscenes, and all that. And then
Yeah, there's places where you pull a lever and then the screen scrolls over and it shows a door opening and it scrolls back to the player.
Mm-hmm.
And we had really added so much cool little bells and whistles and just more sophisticated stuff than what we had on our earlier side-scrolling games when it was just one programmer paired with one artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quick recap of what JavaGround is. JavaGround was a flip phone mobile game company. I think lasted from 05 to 10. None of us started in 05. I think of this group, I was the earliest in January 06. It was started by two Belgian engineers. I guess their idea was use our tools that we've created to efficiently and quickly create mobile games for all the myriad devices, because this was the Wild West of mobile, and like that was a whole big thing. You want to make a game for mobile, there's like a million devices you have to put it on. And most of what we did was work for hire, right? So it was like for Sony, or who have mostly Sony, but other companies too. Is there anything else that we can add to what is JavaGround?
Quite revolutionary, in the technology at that time. I still remember that after JavaGround, I moved to AT&T, where I met Nolene. Wait, I don't think you were with Nolene. Jinpei and Valentina, right? They worked.
Oh yeah, remember Valentina.
Yeah, and their technology. This is AT&T, right? This is a big company. Their technology was really, really bad. They will be so happy, that they can port their app to like one phone in like that month or that week. Like just one phone, like they're happy about it. They were actually celebrating. Well, what we were doing at JavaGround, we were porting to like 100 phones in like 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
And then just and all of that is because like the all that platform, what did they call that?
At first, it was just called the JavaGround tools, but then it was called the Express Suite.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Express Suite, jeez.
Well, the word solution was in there too.
Oh,
at
remember.
some point,
Oh, yeah,
wasn't it?
the solution, yeah.
Yeah.
The solution. That's what it was called for a while.
I mean,
That was quite revolutionary, to be honest. Like that was quite well done. Zaf did all of that, right?
I mean, it's still one of my, like, I lament all these like 2D level design tools they're not as nice to use as the JavaGround level editor was, like when it was working.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it's still just like,
I had come from working at another company for 6 years, and we did a lot of like, where you had to do individual versions, like you had to redraw the graphics in different ways so that they fit on all the different phones. And when I came over, that engine that they had, the way it compressed graphics to make the packet sizes smaller to be on the phones allowed for graphics like we're seeing here. Like at the time, it was like you didn't have games like you have now where it's like it can play anything from any of your Nintendo systems. Back then, it was really dependent on space. And the software that they designed was, nobody was doing anything like this. It was amazing. It was like very freeing, creative wise, to design stuff that was like interesting and colorful, and they were ahead of the curve on that for sure.
Yeah, they had to fit these games on devices with very limited processing power and memory resources. And since it was all running on Java Mobile Edition, I have to assume that created even more overhead that had to be overcome. And so this entire game was something like 400 kilobytes. And that's what you'd see back in the days of like Nintendo and Super Nintendo. And this was probably the last time anyone ever had to make a game of that size.
Yeah.
But this was the late 2000s, right before smartphones took over. And like you said, there were so many different non-smartphones that you had to get the game to work on. Because if the carriers like AT&T and Verizon were going to put a game on one of their mobile stores, they wanted some assurance that it would work on the majority of the phones that their customers were using. So we had to figure out how to get these games on hundreds of devices. And each device had its own unique quirks. Some of them had really, really severe memory limitations, and others didn't have enough storage capacity to store lots of animation frames. I think we're looking at the build that would have run on like the top of the line Sony Ericsson non-smartphone. And I'm seeing parallax scrolling and lots of frames of animation, and all those things could be turned off for the Nokia candy bar shaped phone.
So what is Blood Plus? Blood Plus was an anime series that followed the movie Blood the Last Vampire, which followed a manga, and I guess Sony had acquired the rights to the property. I remember there was some question about, will we do a Castlevania mobile game one day? And as a Castlevania fanboy, this was a big deal to me. I was like, oh my God, I want to do Castlevania. And it became apparent at some point that was just not going to happen. So when this game came along, for me, it was like, okay, this is going to be our Castlevania. So that's what Blood Plus was to me.
It even has candles on the wall. Although
yeah, there you go. That's how you know.
Right. Yeah.
We cannot make it like a Castlevania game, though, like, because certain someone really wanted to be like God of War.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Speaking of that certain someone, this level was a nightmare to design because at this point he had his fingers well in our development.
This is the producer at Sony we're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
This is the Kool-Aid man for everyone wanting to know. He's the guy that
goes, no.
Yeah, you'd work on a game for a game that technically would be revolutionary in those times. We were building the very first free roaming world game for cell phones. I don't know, like a good 10 years before they actually had anything kind of like that. I don't even know do they have anything like that right now? I don't know.
Probably.
But we worked on this game for like a year. And then like a week before delivery, after we'd all been sleeping in the office over Christmas vacation, he comes in and goes, my girlfriend doesn't think this is fun. She likes this game, and shows us a puzzle game where you push boxes to move levers. And it was just like, well, we got the assets for the boxes.
Oh yeah, this was our previous project.
Box game in a week. So yeah. So that guy was the Kool-Aid man. He'd like bust in and like destroy all your stuff, be like, yeah, but I brought you Kool-Aid, guys, it's all cool.
Oh my God, it was such a fun game. This was like, yeah, because I had designed almost all the levels, and then he was like, hey, there's no double jump. And we were like, yeah, we said there wasn't going to be double jump. It's too difficult to execute on mobile on these terrible flip phones that don't always respond right away.
Yeah.
Double jump's not great. Why don't we, just not? And so that last level, level 2, which is like a really vertical level, I had to redesign the whole thing to like account for double jump. And so that's why you'll so often see this. I think, David, you're playing through in this one, right?
Yeah, playing through terribly, but yeah.
Well, I mean, part of it was like, okay, well, I have to move things, but we're so late in development, I can't spend any time to like really change the flow of the level or anything. And so it's like, I see you trying to like line up your jumps so often. And I'm just like, oh, that's that double jump. He was like, we have to have double jump. God of War had double jump. We need to have double.
Oh my God.
I think that the producer wanted this game to be as much like God of War as possible.
Yeah.
And I uncovered a memo that I evidently wrote at the beginning of the project that indicated that the initial intent was for us to simply reskin our God of War mobile game. And it would have required, I suppose, no programming at all and no level design at all. It was just put blood plus artwork on top of it.
And your memo was a rather emotional screed, was it not?
Let me recite it. I'll just read it for you guys.
Please do.
Frustration.
Okay.
Please
I'm not sure
read it
who
with
this was.
emphasis.
Yeah, I don't know who I sent this to. Maybe it was just a personal journal, but I think I must have sent it to management or somebody.
And I'll
I said-
bleep out names in
Right.
post.
Right. All right. I said to make blood within the required 3-month time frame, the producer's plan is to take God of War and swap out the art. Almost no programming or level design would be involved. I am opposed to this plan. As with Afterworld, the process would be tedious, involving no creativity, and the result would be subpar. The technical dangers of shoehorning content into an ill-prepared engine should be obvious. But my other concern is that the 3-month schedule does not provide me enough time to replace the content of God of War, which is our most asset-heavy title to date. And unlike Afterworld, the beloved Blood license is too valuable to squander through plagiarization. I was excited about the Blood project, but I don't like this development approach. The CEO suggested that if we go forward with this approach, we should not include the JavaGround logo in the game. I don't see the value of a project that we won't stand behind. Diluting our product portfolio would impact our morale and our reputation, and with it, our ability to attract the industry's most talented developers.
And you posted this to Reddit.
Wait, for real?
No, I have no idea who I shared it with.
Well, now
Because
you've
it was
shared it
like-
with the world.
Jesse with a Guy Fawkes mask on, like talking like how Jesse talks, like nobody would guess it was him.
An ill-prepared engine.
Hey guys, I don't like this at all. Thank
And
you.
of course, I agree with all.
It felt like a pretty high stakes situation, and so I'm glad it went the way it did.
Some really good stuff came out of that.
Yeah.
Those little cinematics were gorgeous. They were so cool.
Oh, I had so much fun animating that stuff.
Oh yeah, you did all of those like when the screen goes black, right?
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
Yannick, our French-Canadian artist, he drew Saya, but I animated her. And I drew and animated the Chevaliers, so this guy and Haji, as well as the final boss, Diva. And Dan, I think you took care of the more like monster-looking enemies, like the Chiropterans, I believe. And there's a final boss that looks like a big Chiropteran. And I think you did the shift as well, if you're still there. And Jesse, you
Yeah,
focus
right.
more on the backgrounds, right?
Yeah, I took another pass at most of the tile backgrounds and the scenery that got overlaid on top of the tiles. And it was all already designed and looking great. I just added some texture and some detail to it.
Right. And Jeffrey did various enemies and backgrounds, and he did the food, as you pointed out.
And a lot of the level decoration, like I was giving him levels that were bare. You know, one of the techniques of creating a level is you just kind of block it out, you know, just kind of, hey, big blocks of things. And I have no finesse with aesthetics, like still terrible at it. So I was just like, hey, here's like all the collision that I want. And I would block it out just with like big strips of like the same tile over and over that look. And he's like, what do you want me to do with this? And I'm like, oh, make it look pretty. I don't know. And he was like, it's so much work. It's like,
They came out great because you can't really tell where the tiles intersect with each other. And
Yeah.
there's such great use of decoration on top of the tiles to add little variation to it.
yeah, it was, all the levels came out gorgeous, like absolutely stunning, especially, you know, like Dan mentioned for at the time, like, and I think Jess, you were talking about it too, where it's just like, you don't have megabytes, you don't have gigabytes, you have kilobytes
Yeah.
and not very many.
I think the only thing we had that the original console manufacturers of the 80s and 90s didn't have was the PNG image format, and that allowed us to make the sprites really nice and compact on disk.
Yeah.
I think one of the mistakes I was making when I played this was my memory of this was, again, as I said, this is our Symphony of the Night, right? And then, so I have this on an emulator. I plugged in a gamepad, a controller. I'm trying to play it like I would, like, you know, a PlayStation game or whatever. And it doesn't actually control that way.
Yeah.
Like when you jump, it's always like a forward jump, or it's made for mobile phones and not for this gamepad. So
yeah, I think one of the major limitations of non-smartphones is that if you were trying to press a bunch of buttons all at the same time, it would only know that you were pressing one button.
So that happens a lot here because when you use a gamepad, you're like doing that all the time.
Yeah.
And I think so that was
I think that's part of the design that's common in mobile games, that you have to be able to play it with one hand, right? Because people play
I was not playing with one hand.
but you don't do it like with two hands. So
Yeah, and you know, and a lot of phones, they didn't recognize multi-input, so you could even play it with two hands like this, but
but it doesn't give you
you press 7 and 9 at the same time, and it's like, I don't know, it picks one. Or sometimes it'll like, I remember there was one device where if you press 7 and 9 at the same time, it would actually press 8 instead. Halfway between the two.
It'd split the difference.
It would, yeah. Like, and all these different devices, they had different like quirks with sound and notifications and interrupts and.
Oh, Dan, you're back. So I was asking, I think, do I remember right? You did the Chiropteran monsters. You did one of the bosses, like big Chiropteran.
Yeah.
And you did the Schiff, I think? Those like cloak guys?
Yes, the guys with the scythe.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Have they shown up yet? I don't know if they've shown up.
They haven't shown up, but there have been a lot of Chiropterans.
Yeah. I really like the Chiropteran sort of vampire werewolf characters.
Yeah, that's up your alley, right?
These monsters. Yeah, exactly. And the thing that's funny looking back at this that I love, you didn't see a lot of in the games back then, is like how much like gore and like blood spray and stuff that we're
there's
allowed
so
to do
much
in this game.
Yeah.
I love it when he chops the heads off those little the mutant baby ones, and there's like for a second there's like a fountain that's coming out of the neck.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I'm not sure how we got away with that.
Here they are.
Because
they're your shifts.
When I tried to put like questionable content in Snoop Dogg Lowrider, all of that stuff was censored out.
There we go.
Like we got away with all this blood in this game, even in the
we
title.
have to swap out like green blood or something.
Yeah, there's a green blood.
Yeah.
There's an alternate palette that turns all the blood green for certain more conservative carriers.
Good thing not this version.
There's like a hoop.
Yeah, so many red gobs.
Yeah.
David helped immensely, though. I remember because I was having a hard time because I was somewhat new to the animation tools at this time. Because I mainly was brought on like in the beginning, and most of the stuff I was doing was kind of like proof of concept, like art, where I would create shots that look like we'd made the game to sell to the publisher to say this is what it's going to look like, and to get us the license or whatever, or not get us the license per se, because they already had it, but like to get us to be able to be the ones that worked on the project.
Well, so very specifically, what you were doing before this was different companies were pitching ideas to make the Big Brother game.
Oh God!
Oh
right?
yeah.
So you were doing that for Sony for Big Brother, and we were competing against Konami. I don't remember exactly how this went down, but at some point we then ended up working with Konami to help them because they won. They beat us to the pitch, and then they're like, oh, but you helped on this other pitch, why don't you help us? And that's when the question of Castlevania came up. And I think our CEO, my memory of it is he was kind of a little bit hanging that over us, like, this project sucks, but guys, you want Castlevania, maybe you'll get it if you do this. And we weren't gonna get it.
Meanwhile, we were working on Afterlife, and I was so overworked and so tired, I was falling asleep in group meetings.
Oh, Afterlife was...
They're like, Dan, are you tired? Would you like to leave? No, I'm awake.
I would like to
Oh,
see
actually, it was Afterworld, and it was a new franchise.
Right.
It was. They were trying to make this kind of soap opera type post-apocalyptic thing with it was animated, but it had very limited animation.
Yeah,
It was mostly
they wanted it to be open world though, kind of like
Yeah.
you know, one of these ones where you just kind of wander around, you find stuff, and you look for clues to like make your way around.
Yeah,
And nobody was
it
doing
reminded me a
anything
lot.
like that.
Yeah.
There was an old NES game called Fester's Quest, which like Uncle Fester from.
Yes.
So
I remember that.
So I remember that project was like that you're talking about, because I was still in QA at the time. So it was like you guys were working on it furiously, and we didn't have a build. And then the day that there was a build was also the day that the Sony people came down to check it out, and then they pretty instantly like killed it.
Yeah.
And so then I had to go onto our server and dig up a build and load it up and play it like kind of in secret. Like I was an hourly employee supposed to be testing other stuff, and I'd be like, oh, I know what's going on here. And yeah, it reminded me a lot of Fester's Quest, which was like, this kind of like pseudo open world like design, and like I don't know, it looked really cool.
It was.
I was being really meticulous with the artwork and trying to make every pixel just exquisite. And I was, in defense of Sony, I was moving so slowly that I can kind of understand why the producer would, repel in and just be like, no, you're gonna reskin the Adventures of Lolo and call it done. We're not doing this massive overworld adventure. That's gonna.
Should dig up some of your old art, and we'll add it to this video and post some illegal screenshots.
It's fine. That game doesn't even exist.
No,
I
I
don't
know.
think
It's
the property
I'm sure it's
exists
fine.
anymore.
Who could possibly care?
Right?
Yeah.
A quick aside while I'm looking at this about blood. I don't know if you can tell in the video. This is the moment I realize that you can block in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but the shift, their whole gameplay thing is you have to block, I guess.
Yeah.
And I have not been doing that this whole time. I've just been taking their hits, and it's been miserable. And at some point, you just see me standing there, and suddenly I just block, and I'm like, oh, right.
Oh, that's so
Really?
satisfying.
There was that
was
move.
a request by Jeffrey Nielsen, and when we added the block,
Yeah.
that he wanted to be able to like cancel the current animation so that you can enter the block animation. You know, if you're in the middle of attacking, then you realize the enemy is also attacking you, and you want to go, I want to block right now. So you can actually cancel in the middle of
Oh, that's great.
Oh, well, I didn't figure that out. I'm playing terribly, but
I mean, you do it. You're progressing.
I'm progressing. Yes,
You're doing fine.
I've eaten up so many quarters.
Yeah, as far as arcade-like games go, this feels like kind of like Final Fight or something with all the slowly parallax scrolling environments.
Yeah. There's even like 3 layers of parallax there.
Yeah. There's
you can
more
really
than
see
the
it
one.
here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I don't think we had done parallax scrolling prior to this. I'm not sure.
I think there was one layer in Quantum of Solace.
Okay.
I think there was one layer of parallax, and we didn't use it on every level because there was a lot of them were indoor levels.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to make a whole new engine for this game, Albert, because you were able to do some cool stuff. Like when Saya swings her sword, the white flash is actually made by drawing 2-dimensional polygon graphics.
Yeah.
Oh, I was very happy about that.
That's not an actual pixel drawn.
Right.
I don't think there would have been enough RAM to store a white shape of that size, so it was drawn in real time as a series of polygons.
Yeah, and then you also want to turn that into red, right? When Saya
and it does happen.
Draws that blood too, and then you will turn to red.
Yeah.
So.
I think I was obsessed with that look ever since Soul Blade on the PlayStation 1.
I remember that you were like specifically there. We were talking about that while we were working on it. Like, no, this is the super power up move here. It's the it even said it on the screen earlier when it was doing it. I was like, okay, and it was just like this red blade. Just
no, like Dan, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, all right, man, it's cool.
I was sold on it.
Yeah, it looks good. It's funny. I look at it now and I go, oh. This could have been like a Star Wars game with the right skinning.
Oh, yeah.
With the way the blade looks like when it's flinging around.
Yeah, definitely.
When you go into like the rage mode and the screen turns black, I think I made a mock-up showing a proposal for making it so that there's all these white lights like flashing across the screen really fast. And I don't know if that would have been within the technical capacity of a phone to actually do, but.
Oh yeah, I saw that in that folder you sent.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember. I think you're right though, that it was it was too big of a hit on performance, I think.
Yeah.
I think this was a Tyler level.
That's a challenge.
This level did feel different from the other levels.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more rigid and less organic feeling, but that's probably appropriate for a structure like a big ship.
Who here actually watched all the way through the anime?
I did.
Nice.
I think I did. I just don't remember any more story.
I was a huge fan of the movie, the Blood Last Vampire.
Yeah, I love that.
I kind of stuck with the animation when I watched the series, but
yeah,
they're the same thing but different genre of anime.
Yeah,
because one is very cinematic and like raw like looking, and then the series is cleaner. It's more stylistically of like a teen romance anime, like a Sailor Moon type thing.
Benkyo Tamaoki, I believe, is the guy who originally created the property, made the original manga, and that's what Blood the Last Vampire looks like, and has a very different style from this.
Yeah, I remember I had heard, like I had seen Blood the Last Vampire, and so they were like Blood Plus, and it's like some kind of continue. I was like, oh, what? That's gonna be amazing. And then Dan brought in the official DVDs.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't copy them onto my computer and watch them all. So, yeah. And I think Jeffrey and I also did all the writing. Like,
cool.
We watched it too. And so we were both like I remember I was doing drafts of all these. Because I think somebody had written something, and I was like, it's not quite right. So I was like, can I take a stab at it?
I know one joke line I wrote got in somehow. I think at the very beginning, there's some line where she says like, and like it's scary and all this stuff. And what are all these monsters? And I thought that was like dumb and funny. And I think I sent that to somebody. And I didn't think that was actually going to the game. And that's
that was a memorable line. I think that line should have been its own paragraph at the end, like the last thing to scroll onto the screen, just to create a sense of apprehension.
I'm gonna put that line in my new book just for you, David.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
It's very fitting because, of course, there's monsters in it.
Of course.
I think that there was some doubt as to whether AT&T and the other carriers would want to make a game really violent like this available to customers. So I think the initial
proposal
proposal
the green blood, right?
There was the green blood, but also I think that the original proposal was for the game to be titled Saya Warrior Princess.
Yeah,
did not have the word blood in it at all. Just like
that was
completely
terrible.
Ignore the IP that we had bought.
Yeah,
we can see that.
I'm glad that the original name actually made it through.
So, Jesse, you developed some software to make side-scrolling games kind of like this.
Yeah, I think that's how I landed the gig at Java Ground. I have it behind me, so
I think
I'll
I still have it
quick.
on my Mac that's over here behind me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I haven't used it in a long time.
It only works on really old Macs, like
Yeah.
Macs from like 2006 and before or something like that.
That's mine.
I think it kind of stopped working in the year 2010. So this was my side-scrolling action game authoring tool that I made.
It was great.
Thanks. And
Are you
so,
planning to port that to the new Mac, the new?
yeah, I really wanted to. The programming language that I was using was not being very cooperative, so I never got it to work natively on Intel-based Macs. And now even Intel-based Macs are like no longer a thing. Now they've moved on to yet another architecture. So Power Game Factory is 2 Apple chip architectures behind.
Wow.
At this point.
Yeah, I thought about making because some guys are making side-scroller games for their comics in the crowdfunding field, and I thought about making one for my current book.
You should do it. Do it.
Dude, it's so much work.
Nah, it's easy. Just make a game.
Well, if you want to help me work on it, David, then sure. You know me, I was never good at the programming language thing, and I could do some graphical elements, but yeah.
Well, when Jesse was first creating his Power Game Factory, I believe one of his competitors was this little startup called Unity 3D. I think they're still around. So.
I like Unity a lot, though. Like,
look at that graphic, the frozen shifts. That's so cool.
Obviously, there was someone working at Unity who had some skill when it came to running a business and building a business.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but it did take them 11 years to get 2D incorporated regularly into their engine. I was just like, it was a 3D engine, and they were like, we don't want 2D stuff. Roll your own if you're gonna do that. No. And then they finally were like, hey guys, guess what? 2D everything. And then everybody was like, fine.
I didn't realize that I had such little competition in the late 2000s.
I know, right? If you had kept that going, Jesse.
Yeah.
Everybody will be using the Power Game Factory by now.
That's right.
I saw the Java Ground tools as a much more powerful but less consumer-friendly alternative to my own game building tool, because you have to really know what you were doing to make a game with these Java Ground tools. Like the GOB editor was pretty intimidating upon first glance, but once I got a feel for it, especially with my Wacom tablet in hand, that worked out really well. And I wanted to make something like it, and I never got around to it because it was just going to be so much work. I wanted to make something like the Java Ground tools just for making Mac and PC games.
Yeah, those were good
I
tools.
never had a better time animating game art than when I was using the Java Ground resource manager.
Alex and Zob, if you're watching this, those were good tools.
Yeah,
They were great tools.
Yes, thank you guys.
Yeah, I was I came from another company called Flying Tiger, and we did stuff for Disney, and worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, and we're making cell phone games in the beginning, because in the beginning the thing that's funny is a lot of this stuff, the phones never did anything like this. It was very minimal animation and or even graphical amount of levels. Usually there's 3 levels in some of these games, and they were completely looked at by the carrier and the studios that had the rights as digital billboards that you would have on your phone while you're waiting in line, at the burger stand, or while you were waiting in line back at the time, you waited in line for movies, as an advertisement tool. It wasn't meant as something that was gonna live on as a gaming experience where you were gonna come back to it and keep trying to get through the levels.
And that was the feeling with, I think, a lot of our Java Ground movie tie-in games, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that was kind of the idea, because this was right when we did these games, it was right at that time when there was that shift where everything went oh, well, your game system is now your phone. Before that, the phone was just oh, there's a little widget on here that does a thing. It's kind of like a game, but it's not quite like your Nintendo or your Sega, Sega Dreamcast or PlayStation 1 or whatever. And then there was that shift where I think when the iPhone came out, it was what did it, because then everybody was we got to catch up to this iPhone technology. And then Samsung and all them, they made their version and then suddenly this stuff was very capable of you could do some sort of world building adventure on the phone. I think we were doing, if not the first, some of the first games like this for the phone that were as interactive as this. I mean, because even before, when I came there, you guys were just kind of finishing up the Spider-Man movie license game, and it was a Bejeweled skin. It was the crystal jumping, maneuvering puzzle thing. It wasn't
one of them.
Yeah. Well, the one that when I came in, the one I saw was the puzzle one.
Spider-Man.
And I was going, oh man, how cool is that? They did the Spider-Man puzzle game. And then David's yes, but look at this other thing we're doing now. it was just like God of War was like being finished, and it was like, whoa, like that's crazy that you got that going on a phone. I'm like, what do you do when you have to port that to the Nokia Plus or one of the other little tiny little messenger?
They had to make some like real serious sacrifices in order to get it to work on the Nokia phone. Yeah. Apparently, every time you create a new type of object in a game, like a character or a level or an item or a projectile, it adds a little bit of overhead to the RAM footprint and also maybe the size of the game on the disk. So I think our solution was to not have like separate discrete objects like classes for each type of thing that might appear in the game. So I think all of our engines right up through the God of War engine were written as single classes instead of having different classes for each object type. And that made the game just so hard to program. And when you write code without multiple classes, the program is liable to just collapse under its own weight, and it'll be so hard to debug. And all that was just for the sake of getting it to work on these phones that couldn't support like elaborate games. So Albert, did this one have multiple classes?
No, this one does not have multiple classes.
Okay. And that's why I guess this one looks on a
big class, with everything in it. I mean, wait,
this is a great boss.
There's probably like one or two, maybe like a couple, but they're not like, each object has its own class. There's still like, you do still have to consider like all the code footprint. What we did with the programming language, we're using Java, and that was kind of crazy that we were able to fit a Java program into a phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the boss that Dan made, right? Dan,
this is one of the only assets that I still have is a walk cycle of this guy kind of stomping across with his arms out.
Yeah, this is
good old James.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember he's using so much memory, like for this one, like this.
What have you done, Dan?
Sorry, I'm looking at it now and I'm going, I should have made a graphic when his hands are down with those spike things out that they should look like they're buried in the ground somehow, like damaging the floor. But I don't know if that was even an option back then. Now I'm thinking about it, or maybe it was. We had to have the claws just because that was the graphic that we had.
Because I remember, kidding. You should have used even more memory.
Yeah, I just remember that these things. One of the ways, inside, we're giving away technology secrets. Is that all these characters are all a bunch of crude, if at viewing, when you see the elements that make up these characters, they're crude shapes because they're a bunch of almost like jigsaw pieces that go together within the coding. Like literally, not only is it animating the thing moving, but it's also animating the placement of the parts of the figure, like a paper doll. There's like little pieces every time there's a joint or something that needs to move. It's like a small piece that is attached there. So it's like some stuff is reused and things like that to allow that element to happen.
So how many because we call those gobs, right?
Yes, the gobs.
Yeah, geographical object.
How many gobs would make up Saya, for example?
Oh, I mean, you could count them.
Yeah.
So it would be like what? Her foot, her shin, her thigh.
Times
ankle.
2. Same thing with the arms, except I don't think I separated the hands and forearms. So what are we up to now? That's like 10.
Yeah.
And then I think I had a way of doing this ever since Spider-Man, where I think I would kind of do them all the same. So I think I divided the torso in 3. So we're up to 13. Then the head,
right? Like Snowman.
Yeah, exactly. So she's like in a normal pose, probably between like around 15, maybe 20 in a normal pose, and then something fancy where you have like blood squirting out. It's a whole bunch more. So I would imagine, Albert, it seems like, so we're sacrificing kind of processing power for graphical storage. We don't have these giant sprites, but is there overhead in rendering all of these little pieces?
Well, there's always usually the more gobs you have that's on the screen, that it will take longer to look through it. And
there's a lot of gobs.
Right, there's a lot of gobs, right? And then, but I don't think we ever it's not a trade-off between the processing power and the memory. That you lose the processing and you gain some more in memory. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's just that, like, you do have to keep the amount of stuff that is drawn. I don't remember if bigger gobs is necessarily better than smaller gobs put together, but the smaller gobs put together is better, always better for the outcome, like the build size, right? Because it will be smaller, which is the first hurdle that we have to go through when we try to port the game into a phone. We always have to get the build size small first, because otherwise it's not going to load. So, so that's why, the smaller gobs is typically, that's what we do first, right? If we can split the big one into smaller one, that's what we do first. Now, as far as whether it's going to end up slower, that's like secondary. As long as we can get in there, we can play it, that's like a big thing. Yay, now let's go fix the bugs.
There was a lot of gobs right there.
Yeah.
Like with all those shadows
all those pieces of blood spewing everywhere.
Yeah. There's also that move that those guys make when they jump in and they do this blood knife like throw thing, and it's like just a wave of a bunch of little pieces that shoot out.
Yeah, I think that's actually supposed to be the boss that's doing that, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's a trap, right? That's not like a
yeah.
Oh, that's
so
not
like
the guys.
the thing like flies in, and you'll see it like stick in the ground, and you can't block it. So that's supposed to be your cue to run the other way, but I don't think that.
I think every single time you see me try to block it, get hurt.
Yeah, because it makes sense, because you block everything else, and then you should be able to. I don't know. I probably came up with that. And like I said, it was my second game ever professionally. So there was some really good choices that I feel like I can stand behind for this game and other games. But there's a lot of stuff that I was really just learning, and we didn't have any kind of feedback in place. You know what I mean? It was just like the six of us that would play it here and there. But I mean, Albert's busy coding, the other three are busy, arting, and like you don't have a lot of time to like play the game, and the levels weren't ready until much later.
So I guess this could be more of a general question, but is there some legacy in your work now? Did you learn from this?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, most definitely. I learned some pretty bad level design things too late, but so they're in the game and they're not good. But I learned about those, and I'm like, okay, I'll never do that again. An example of one is in the very last level, you pull a lever that opens a door that has another lever in it, and then you pull that one, and then the door that you want to open opens. And there's no like extra level of challenge. It's just pull one lever so that you can pull the other lever. It really didn't make any sense.
I mean, that's growth, right? Learning from your mistakes or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was stubbornness, I think, at the time, because I remember Jeffrey telling me, this is pointless. Why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, take it out. I was like,
that mechanic is actually good to make people go back and forth, just to kind of like fill in the space, so to speak. That I do remember back when we were making Spider-Man, we don't have all of these levers and all that stuff, right? It's like, it's kind of pointless when you just roam around with nothing to do, right? You just go to one corner and like, oh, there's what's in this corner? Nothing. So in order to fill in the space, to make the level feels more compact, feels more efficient, so to speak, that you can sort of do that thing, like you open the levers here, but then you now have to go back to where you came from to pull that one lever, and so that you can go back then again, right? So it's a way for us to prolong the game so it feels longer, with the limited space that we have.
That's what you want. You want to pad your game.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is if you had I think the only mistake in that situation with the door is like when you open that door, like kind of like in that one level where there was that tier thing where you're moving back and forth as you're going up, is you'd open a door and then there would be a scythe in there or whatever, or scythe in there.
Yeah.
There should have been something like that. There should have been a villain or something that was released. Yeah. So it wasn't just like open the door, pull a lever, go up through a door, pull a lever. Yeah. Like it should have been something like, okay, I need to get to that lever, but there's something in there that I'm gonna have to deal with at the same time. So
yeah, exactly.
If we had a checkpoint system, I could see doors working really well, kind of like Dark Souls maps where you've got a checkpoint, you go through this whole thing, and it's like, oh God, am I going to die and have to do it again? But finally, you can unlock the door that was like right there at the beginning, and you can save again, type of thing. That's a nice use of doors, I think.
I love Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1, I could write essays about how amazing that game is. It's so good. I'm doing a playthrough of part 2 actually right now for the first time.
When did Dark Souls come out?
The first.
Yeah.
Great question.
Well, so the first one was preceded by Demon Souls,
Demon
and that
Souls.
came out.
Late 2000s, right? 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, that I
Like
think
that?
might have even overlapped with Java Ground.
Okay. I was wondering if you had been inspired by that when you were making levels for this.
No, I wish, because I didn't play Dark Souls 1 until a couple of years ago. But I watched my roommate play it, Brian, and I was enthralled. So anytime he sat down to play it, I was like, dude, I'm sitting on the couch next to you and I'm taking notes. The level design for that game is incredible.
Yeah.
And I mean, the design overall for that. But yeah, I could definitely see that. And we know what's interesting is, so there were 2 producers at Sony, main ones that we interacted with. The Kool-Aid guy for this one, and then the other one that we used, he actually pitched an idea that in retrospect was pretty much Dark Souls that he wanted for Zombieland, but we ended up deviating, I think, a little bit to try a little bit more fun and a little less challenging, and it ended up pretty medium. But yeah, sorry, that was way off topic.
Well, Nick, I wouldn't be disappointed. I wouldn't be disappointed that you hadn't, already become a super masterful level designer prior to working on this project, because other projects prior to this one didn't even have a dedicated level designer. It was up to the programmer to do it. So this one, in my recollection, is just way, just way more complete as a game due to the fact that we each did what we were uniquely capable of, and it was just a good division of labor. And there were a lot of people collaborating and contributing to it. So I'm really happy that this is part of my Java Ground legacy, because this is when all of the skills that we had built up doing the earlier projects were starting to pay off.
Yeah.
We could
It's
really
like all the
put it
things
into
that we
practice.
learned from Casino Royale, God of War, Spider-Man, kind of like put them together. And also Zombieland's using the same engine too.
Yep. And the same scripting language.
Yeah.
That you built.
Yeah.
It's just I just need to show Jason this is how you add new commands. This is how you add new stuff. Okay, all right. Is that it? Yeah. All right, sweet. So, and then with Zombieland, you're able to kind of move the main character to a different part of the map. I don't think we have that here in Blood Plus. So the whole level feels like one continuous level. While in Zombieland, you have this doors where you can go enter the door and it moves you to a different place, quote unquote place, even since it's the same map, but it's just a different location.
Yeah, it's like the city's down here, and then way off in the corner, I have a room for the gas station, and then you go in there, and then it's like the screen goes dark, and then the player teleports, and then it loads back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was a really good evolution of this game engine, and that game, Zombieland, had to work on the iPhone, so we had to use our Java Mobile Edition to Objective-C converter, and that was a project that didn't look like it was going to bear fruit for the longest time until suddenly it worked, and we could turn all of our Java Mobile Edition games into iPhone games. But your game engine, Albert, was able to handle that crazy metamorphosis into a smartphone game engine.
Was this the same team? Did we all here work on Zombieland plus Jason?
See, the thing is I didn't even remember. I remember Zombieland, but I don't remember if I did anything on that one. I might have been, they might have tasked. I remember there was a period of time where I was tasked to redo all the art for Galaga. I think it was for the iPhone.
Think about
everybody else was
Zombieland.
working on other stuff.
I think that by the time we started working on Zombieland, we didn't really have the same level of resources to allocate to each project. So the games had to be done faster and with fewer people.
Yeah.
And we weren't afforded the time to polish everything. So we were expected to just do the art once and have it be done. And with Blood Plus, we had time to go back and refine things.
Yeah.
So I think Blood Plus was the most fully realized game, although Zombieland was pretty cool in its own right, that it worked on the iPhone where you had these much larger sprite graphics.
That was a really good game for a lot of reasons, but yeah, a lot of those reasons were built upon this, like what we're watching here. So.
Yeah, and Zombieland might have been the last one of those big, elaborate side scrollers that we made.
It was. Yeah, I don't. After that, I think we tried making iPhone games, little easy ones, right? Inferno, I think, was one of them, or something like that.
That's when we finally tried to start breaking away from the work for hire thing, sort of.
That's right. Yeah.
Java Grounds, Hail Mary.
Yeah, Hail Mary is a good way to describe it, because we decided to make a whole bunch of games, and each one was supposed to be real simple, but we were hoping that one of them would be our very own Flappy Bird and just take the world by storm for no apparent reason and save the company.
Yeah, we invested, like the company as a whole was investing a lot into these tools and into the Express website, which was basically the app store before smartphones ever existed. Like, it was really trying to pull all the stuff together, all the stuff that we had done. I think we got contracts from Glue and like all these other major players in the mobile space to like pull all of these games in, and then you kind of like log onto the website from your flip phone, download the games that you need that are made for your device, so they're, you know what I mean, they're not generic builds. And then I think 2 weeks after we launched that, Apple launched the App Store. And so that project was hosed, I think, before it started, and I mean, we just had no idea. Like, there's no way we could have known, you know.
Right.
What is going on here?
This is a pretty intense cinematic sequence here.
She's being saved by a pterodactyl?
Yeah.
I think that's Huggy, right? That's Huggy's transformed.
That's him?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
And here we're entering the opera house.
Yeah.
I don't remember this.
The last level.
Oh, this is I remember.
I forgot about the bird.
Yeah, I did too.
I forgot about the bird too, yeah.
Huge bird.
But this is the special cutscene that we have.
Culminates at the opera, because there's a great opera scene in Final Fantasy VI.
This one here.
Oh, yeah. Final Fantasy VI. I'll write essays about that game too. Like, that's my favorite of all time.
Okay, so you're gonna have to do Dark Souls and Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, like 3 or 4 essays each, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll get on that.
Good. Yeah. Do that.
I love the fact that there's some stuff in this game that you don't get to see until you've played through most of the game. Like, you're not rewarded with seeing all the different types of monsters and all the different tile sets and artwork until you've done a lot of gameplay.
So when I was playing through this, I kind of had this idea that we only do kind of one monster type per level, which that also sort of sets it apart from some other games I'm used to. Like in a Castlevania, you've got a bone chucker, and then you've got like a zombie, and part of the puzzle is you have to navigate how to deal with both of them. But here it's all Chiropterans or all Schiff. And then I was thinking that must be because of limitations in the hardware. And then in this level, there's a secret area where you fight all the different monster types. And it's just like, okay, I guess never mind. We can display them all.
Oh, so it was just a aesthetic decision after all.
Or maybe that's the story. There's only one monster at a time for narrative reasons.
I don't remember why. I feel like there was a reason, but it might have been narrative, like you said, just like, well, these monsters weren't in this scene, so
yeah.
And so that sequence that you just finished is the one that I was talking about earlier, which is like you push the box onto the thing and then it opens the door, and then there's a lever, and then the other, and it's like, yeah.
So I do feel bad that, and you have a video, Nick, of this level where you do the full level, and in this playthrough, I missed the secret area with all of the different monster types, and
easy to
I feel
miss,
bad about
and
that.
Honestly, I wish we would have had something to market a little bit better. Like in classical NES days, you would have, like, you would look at a wall and be like, that wall doesn't look quite right. Like, there's a crack where there's not normally a crack, or like you see the floor tile collision go over top of the wall, and it's like, no, it normally goes under, so you know what I mean? So you would think to try it, and here we have nothing. It looks like a normal wall, and you can just go through it. That's
so
right
there
there.
it is.
Yeah.
Most
when I saw it in your video, Nick, I was like, oh, that's so cool. There's this secret area. It's so cool. And the payoff though is a note with a website to some like merchandise or something.
Yeah.
If you like beat all the monsters, I'm like, okay,
I really didn't.
I guess
I was
that's
not
cool.
pleased about that. That was like, so yeah, all of my, after I had designed a couple of levels and I had blocked them out in the level editor and like sent them over to the producer. And he was like, yeah, cool. All right, yeah, things are going good. I'm like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden, everything was terrible and I had to redo everything. So then before I could even get into the tool to block it out, he says, I want you to draw it on paper and fax it to me. And then, yeah.
Literally?
He was
Fax it to you?
nasty about it too. Like I had
Oh my gosh.
I had a whole design for level 3. And it started with you like doing this huge fall sequence, and like you can see parts of the level as you're falling, so you kind of get some clues, and then you land and you got to kind of climb up. I think level 3 was called the cellar. And then he just like circled the whole thing and then just wrote bad and then faxed it back to me.
Wow. I feel like, I don't know, without getting too much into it, this is sort of the story of Java Ground a little bit. Little bit.
I was furious.
Very dependent on other companies and other personalities from outside the company, and our fate really rested on the whims of these people that didn't have any real accountability.
Yeah, it literally felt like his whim, because like I wanted constructive feedback. He was like, hey, this whole fall sequence.
It was my whim. Do what I tell you to do.
That was perfect.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, I had so much fun animating her.
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah.
I love her dress.
Oh, yeah. This is like the culmination of my experience with God.
The dress, or is that like?
I think so. I think.
Yeah, dress.
Yeah. She has a Batwing dress in the anime.
Okay.
That's a nice illustration of the power of the gobs, because there's all these different flowing layers that kind of have to operate independently of one another.
Yeah.
Then I felt pretty cheap fighting her, because when you die, you just there's no checkpoint. You just respawn. It's like, it's basically God mode, which I guess that's, there are reasons we did that, but I felt a little bad when I was fighting her that way.
Putting a lot of quarters in the machine.
we will be rich by now.
That's right.
So, yes, sorry. So I had to fax them all of my level designs. And so I was like, do I include the secret area in my fax? Because I just did it. Like it was already done. And I was like, do I include it? I was like, and I don't think I did. But then I think the associate producer, I think she stumbled into the area and then was like, what is this? I was like, oh yeah, I made a secret area. She was like, oh, we could like do, and like marketing stuff started rolling out of her mouth. And I was just like, can we not? And she's like, well, this is a marketing tool. It's like, okay.
I think a lot of these games, unfortunately, were paid for out of the marketing budgets.
They were,
the publisher. Definitely. Because it was always meant for the purpose of promoting some other product.
Yep.
In the case of all the games that were based on James Bond or Spider-Man, it was to get more people to buy movie tickets. This one felt like it kind of stood on its own a bit more.
Yeah.
And that did sort of color all of our games. That's kind of, because at the end of the day,
and
that's
I think that Java Ground's most enduring title is one of our original creations. It was Uniwar, which to this day is still available on the App Store.
Yeah.
Wow, nice. Really? Okay.
And it's actually gotten a little bit better over time. I'm not sure who's working on it, but it's still there.
They sold it to CBS, I think, and they've got a studio that took it over.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Oh, wow, it was Zob's baby for so long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was just working on it himself for like ages.
Yeah, he was. I heard from him recently, him or Alex, I don't remember. It was a couple of years ago. And they were like, yeah, Uniwar's still going. And I guess he wanted me to make some levels for that, design some maps. And I did, some of them more successful than others, but then they started opening up user designed maps. So that's a new feature that Java Ground never had. And apparently still one of the most popular is one of the ones that I made. And I was like, oh, it feels pretty good. But I mean,
Nice.
kind of a shotgun thing. I did make like, I don't know, 2 dozen of them or something. But
That's cool.
yeah, that's fun. Is it like
I still play Uniwar from time to time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played, but
It's one of the 2 games on my phone.
yeah, this was a fun project. I mean, we did so at the time there weren't a whole lot of websites doing reviews for mobile games. Like I think IGN did it a little bit, but I think it was mostly a website called Pocket Gamer. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
one?
I remember that.
Yeah. So
That
we
was a
ended
UK
up
website,
getting
right?
Silver. Yeah, a silver award for this one.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
Yeah,
I got to put that on my resume.
I
Yeah,
did. I
that's
put it
pretty
on my
cool.
resume for years.
Nice. I guess for a while, I just sort of, and maybe to some extent still, just kind of assumed all these many dozens of games we made in our years at Java Ground, they're just like tossed into the bin of schlock. But then you see YouTube videos of like playthroughs of this, which is, I think, partly what inspired me to do this. And it's like comments like, oh, I remember this from my childhood. I grew up, and it's like, oh, that's cool. This affected somebody.
Well, I mean, we were adults, so, you know, it makes me feel old. But yeah, I'm
Right.
glad you remember it from your childhood. I'm glad somebody remembers it at all. That wasn't us.
Yeah, a lot of
Like
times
that.
I had to kind of console myself by saying, yeah, the game sucks, but it's more about the process than the product. But with this one, the product too was really solid.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that got to be a part of it.
Like you sent me something, Jesse, that you mentioned that Big Brother, one of the contestants actually came to learn about it, right? Like he just realized that, oh wait, there's a game for it. He
Oh,
actually has
really?
his photo. Like I remember I think Jesse who mentioned that.
I have a vague memory of that.
Do you have like when
I
did I
don't-
see that?
I don't remember how that worked out because I remember when we made other games that were based on TV shows like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, we couldn't include Pat Sajak and Alex Trebek and definitely not Vanna White. I guess we would have had to have paid more to get their likeness.
Yeah, for the Big Brother, we actually had the photos of the contestants, like for like one of the seasons.
Yeah.
Well, those people probably licensed their likenesses for cheap.
Yeah.
They were just like
Right.
desperate
They
to get
did.
in the
They
spotlight.
must have. And then somebody pointed that out, like in one of their Twitter feed or something, and like, hey, is this you, right? And then they showed a screenshot of the Big Brother game, like our Big Brother game, and then he was like, no way.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That game was
Like, oh, someone.
it was a lot of fun to work on whatever we did on it. But I remember there was some weird, like, I don't know if you call it a bug, but it's like a design flaw where basically you can win the game just by like constantly selecting to take a shower. Like if you do nothing else and you just keep showering, everyone else like self-destructs. And then you by default haven't lost any points, so you end up winning. It's like,
I mean, I'd like to think there's something to that in life.
yeah.
Staying clean. Staying very, very clean.
Yeah.
That's great. You should film a speed run of Big Brother where you just keep showering.
Yeah.
How fast?
It's like you get 3 selections a day, just shower, shower, shower. Next day, shower, shower, shower.
So luckily,
we've got-
OnePlus doesn't have anything that easy.
Yeah.
It's a real serious challenge, but it's not impossible, as David demonstrates in his playthroughs.
You can see me, so I'm going through this arena, and I think you can see me starting to get a little exhausted. Like, oh, how many more of these? I think at some point I just basically give up. I just
I
can't
mean-
with all these, whatever they are.
Yeah.
It is an awful lot.
Corpse core are these guys?
Yeah.
What are they called?
The corpse core?
Oh, yeah, the corpse core.
Yeah.
When you
Right.
read it, you think it's pronounced like corpse, because,
Yeah, corpse.
Yeah.
but
So many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, 20 of these guys is exhausting to kill. They're
I think it was a boss rush. I would have done it a little differently because I'd like know how many there are. But here I'm I'm like, is it just going to keep going? I don't know.
Yeah.
As we finished our video, I'm happy to just keep going, but do we want to wrap this up? Any final thoughts? Or
I'd just say that was a good phase for me. I enjoyed looking back on the couple of years at JavaGround and looking back at a surprisingly large number of projects that I crammed into my short amount of time there. Lots of good memories and, lots of emotions too. At all the work I've done since then, there haven't been the same kind of highs and lows. I've been on a nice even keel, but like at JavaGround, there maybe it was because it was my first real job and I was somehow motivated to take it real seriously and feel like, if the company did well, and I too could do well. So there was a lot of passion, for better or worse. And with Blood Plus, it worked out real well. I think that made up for all the projects that were just exercises in frustration and all the cancellations and all of the games that got completely redesigned after they were 75% complete. That was soul crushing. But when a game like Blood Plus comes together, it makes it somewhat worth it.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot that I take away from JavaGround in general, and Blood Plus specifically. A lot of it has all like the crew was, you know what I mean? Like it was literally a handful of us that were working together to make this. And I think the total timeline was like 7 or 8 months for principal development, and then a couple more months for porting to all those devices. Something like that's kind of, I don't know if that's right, but that's what I remember. But the other projects in general at JavaGround were very short, and there was an intense pressure to meet deadlines, mostly because they were movie titles. And if you miss the movie deadline, you don't get paid. So you have to hit that deadline. That taught me a lot about teamwork and about how to, all right, well, let's cut scope and things like that. But it also instilled on me, since that was my first office job and like definitely first development job, that like deadlines are crazy. And then everywhere else that I went, like deadlines are no big deal. Like they always seem so far away. And it's like, oh, if they slip, they slip. And I'm just like, I still like 10 years later, however many years, I guess, 13 years at this point since I worked there, I still just go, I can't believe people let deadlines just slip. How do you?
Yep.
Yeah, it's bizarre to me, but everything feels at a snail's pace since then. So kind of leisurely.
Yeah, for the last 11 years, I've been basically just working on the same app.
Yeah.
And it's not this like frantic pace of going from one project to another. But yeah, JavaGround definitely instilled some discipline. But I think it was telling that a game like this, where the development was allowed to spread out across a longer period of time, that ended up being one of the ones we're proud of, because deadlines that are too stringent, they might foster productivity, but they also force you to take shortcuts, and you can't really demonstrate your full abilities as a creative person. So happy with the fact that all the stars aligned and this particular assemblage of talent was assigned to the project. I don't think that was something that could have lasted for that much longer, even if the JavaGround business model was truly sound, because the economy was about to implode. The iPhone was about to crush all non-smartphones. So it's great that it happened, because it could have not happened pretty easily.
Yeah, definitely. Like after JavaGround, like the amount of technical challenges that we were facing, building a full-blown games, platformer, side scrollers, all these things on a tiny phone, right? It's just like the technical challenges is so much that you learn a lot, and plus the deadline, everything. And like Nick was saying, like after JavaGround, it's just like, what's going on? People leave at 5? What do you mean?
Right, because it was like the first serious job for all of us. So like we didn't know that there was like such a thing as a 40-hour work week.
We leave at 10 p.m. that time. It's just like, and it really pushes you, to the limit, right? And all the things that you learned then are still applicable in some ways or another. Even though the technology itself is obsolete now, but the process and the deadline and everything, you're still applying that even to this day, which is like what's amazing thing about working at JavaGround. Even though it was stressful, even though it was like you were underpaid, but hey, there are also many other good things that comes out of it.
Yeah, I don't think we would have been pushed quite as hard if the industry that we were a part of wasn't evolving so rapidly, and if there wasn't so much creative destruction going on, as the economists call it. I think that if we were in like a fundamentally stable industry, we could have had a nice normal feel to our jobs. And David, I'm sure I'm hoping that you've experienced some normalcy in other facets of the game industry in the ensuing years, because you've stuck with it, unlike some people who just burned out. You have a longer than average career in the game biz.
It is interesting looking back on Java Ground. It's the way it was structured and set up. It does feel so different from, as you were saying, Nick, everything I've experienced since. I have very mixed feelings, and some of those are low, but some of them are positive. Some of them are like, this team was amazing and I loved working on it. And it was an interesting and in some ways very positive experience. And there's a lot I remember very fondly about it. And I think, right after Java Ground dissolved, I immediately hit the ground running with a personal project, and it was all about deadlines and setting them for myself and like schedule management with myself and a couple friends. And I think a lot of that came from just kind of the crazy schedules at Java Ground.
Yeah, man, I miss it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure if I would have thrived in that environment in my older body.
So yeah,
I think it was fine to be there as a 26-year-old, but all these years later, I don't know if it would have been good for me.
Yeah, I was just telling that to my wife. I was just like, there's something fun about crunch time when you're young. The crunch that we did for Blood and Zombieland and a lot of other projects at Java Ground, I was passionate. I wanted to crunch, and it was great. And I think I was the only one that was hourly, so that was amazing. I got a lot of overtime pay for that, and it was great. But in my 30s, like, no way. I've got and with a family now, like, no, I'm not pulling. I think the longest day I worked at Java Ground was 16 and a half hours or something.
Wow.
And it was like great, but I was white, and like, I can't imagine trying to do that with a family. Some of the people there did have families.
Yeah.
Yeah, craziness.
Yeah. And with age and experience, you get the wisdom to know that you have value, and it needs to be compensated fairly. And also you get perspective, and you think, well, there's other like really crucial things in life beside just shipping this title. But when you're really young and you don't have a lot of other high priorities in life, I guess you're more susceptible to getting motivated to do this project. And I think a lot of us were doing like really seriously good work even in our youth because we were driven. Maybe it's just harder to get that heavily motivated once life actually happens.
I remember, even at the time, I was sort of very morally opposed to crunch, and like I kind of loathed the idea and that somebody would try to enforce that upon me. So I avoided it at all costs. But I remember during these projects, I would still stay until like midnight. To me, that was somehow avoiding the crunch because I wasn't staying overnight. At least I wasn't sleeping under my desk. Damn it. So
that's such a low bar, but you were, as low as a bar as that might have been, you were still like a respectable skepticism of this culture that was being fostered where everyone was expected to make this their religion. And I think there was like a company culture where it was almost like frowned upon for you not to like be socializing with your colleagues even when you weren't working. So it was supposed to be like one big dedicated group of people just going all out to do these projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the job that I got after Java Ground was another mobile development studio that ended up not panning out either, mostly because of the economy. But I did get the opportunity to go to a couple of GDC events, like up in San Francisco, and that was like amazing. And that was when it started turning me on to this concept of, no, actually, like crunch is failure. It's failure for scheduling reasons, for scope reasons, for execution reasons. Like it could be any type of you have like the fact that you have to crunch means that there's something somewhere that you're doing poorly. And that I remember the first time I heard that, it blew my mind. I was like, wait, how do you what? Like, isn't that's just how it works, right? Like some studios don't crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that like persistent crunch time might just be a symptom of fundamentally flawed business model, poor allocation of human capital, or maybe it means that there's just too many companies in an industry and there's just not enough money for all of them. So only the ones that really scramble can make it.
Also, back at JavaGround, I think the relationship between the company and Sony, Sony knows, who we are, all these like kids just basically graduated out of college, and we're willing to work long hours. And then I think Sony just sort of like they took advantage of that a little bit. Just a little bit, not much.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And then impose all of those things, like they make all those ridiculous changes, like the game is supposed to be released 2 weeks from now, and then they like change everything, right?
Yeah.
They seems to be so liberally like make these decisions because they know we will do it, which is not a healthy relationship.
No, not at all. Yeah, for the longest time, there was no layer of anything between the devs and Sony. Like the idea of a level designer at JavaGround directly faxing their work to a Sony, that's insane to me now.
It was not like, it was occasionally helpful because he would get in moods that were helpful. But those were the exception. A lot of it was pretty traumatizing, to be honest. Like I don't think I have that piece of paper anymore, but I kept it for a long time where he just circled the whole level.
Another unusual thing about JavaGround is the sheer amount of time that was spent getting the games to work on the full range of different devices. The game development would be wrapped up in a few months, and then a few more months would be spent getting it ported over to these 500 other phones. And a lot of the manpower was in the quality assurance department.
Yeah.
And the porting department. A lot of the people who were new to the company would be tasked with porting rather than developing original titles. So that was
we split the QA hours, right? There's a morning QA and there's evening QA, and basically the 24/7 QA. It's
nearly.
Just imagine like all those talented people in the QA department like being reallocated towards making games rather than just like getting them to work on a myriad of different devices. Like that's what it would be like if you were making a game for a Switch. You would just have like the entire payroll devoted to creating original stuff. That would make for some pretty elaborate, very complete looking games compared to what was typically found in the mobile industry.
Yeah, at the time there was just like, it was like what they were called different series by how many pixels wide
and
they were.
That was something I wanted to mention, was that like the biggest and best phone was 240 pixels by 320 pixels. So there really wasn't that much of a canvas to fill. And like even the super like big gobs were really small because you would fill the entire screen really easily.
Yeah, and I think we went down to it was like Series 40, which was 40 by 40 pixels or 44 or something.
I think it was 160 by 128, but some phones had a built-in like HUD, for lack of a better word, that would give you the time and the battery life, and so that would encroach upon the size of the screen. So I think my Series 40 phone might have been 128 pixels wide by like 140 something tall, as far as like usable screen space went.
Yeah, there was 40, 60, and then 120, and then 240. And then right before iPhone came out, we went to Series 320 for like, 2 months or something. And then it was just like,
the very first iPhone was the same type of screen as if you put two of the Sony Ericsson screens
just next
to each other.
Yeah.
So it was like instantly double the number of pixels. But now if you look at a first gen iPhone from like 2007, 2008, it would be like just pathetic looking.
Yeah.
But even that first gen iPhone was twice as good as far as like the size of the canvas that you had to work with as compared to the best non-smartphone.
Yeah. So we would do like development would target like Series 40 generic, right? Series 60, and like you would not just see like increases in canvas size, but you'd also see increase in performance, right, as you went up the line.
Yeah.
So we kind of had like 4 builds that we would kind of target, like those were our target builds, and we would clean those up as much as possible before porting to all of the like Series 40 sub versions where it's like 120 pixels, like 119 pixels actually. Like this phone's kind of weird. And like there was a lot of that. So we kind of had those like the principal build, like principal development, like you were talking about, would take a few months, and then we would split it out into like targets and then port down to everything else.
Yeah, what an ordeal. And certain phones that represented just a fraction of a percent of the market would have these unique quirks that you'd have to account for. And you had to get the game to work on even that insignificant, obscure phone if you wanted the carrier to offer that title to all the customers.
Yeah, because you had the carrier would give you a list. Here's 1,100 phones, and your game has to work on 95% of these, and you can select the 5%.
Pick your favorite 95%.
And it's like, okay, well, your carrier list versus what the manufacturers have sunset, there's actually overlap. Like the manufacturers have sunset the last 5% that you said I don't have to port to. So it was like kind of they were kind of forcing us to support everything. But
yeah.
That Razer 3 though, I don't know if you remember the Motorola Razer V3.
Yeah.
That's like a fake Series 60. It has a big screen, 176 to 20, but then the RAM and everything else is like a Series 40. So it's always been a pain to port to that phone because you always end up putting a Series 40 build on that phone, which it expands the whole thing, which makes it even look uglier. So
oh wow,
it's like a horrible
it's deceptive because it looks like you have this like nice big canvas to paint on, but you can't actually put much on it because you
cannot put much on it, huh? It's like
I remember when we ported Snoop Dogg Lowrider to that phone, both of the lowriders had to have basically the same paint job because there wasn't enough RAM to have cars with 2 different colors.
Remember, we were really close to doing an Underworld fighting game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They sent us all those assets. I think I still have all the photo assets that they sent us.
Did we not make that? Because I remember.
I don't remember.
I think it went out on Android.
It's one of many games that I don't remember.
Oh. So we made an Underworld and an Afterworld?
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, we did. Basically the same game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We did that. I remember they would Sony, like the more we worked with Sony, the more they would send us assets of like really sensitive assets. Like I remember we were getting, so the producers for Zombieland would get the dailies, which, hey, here's some clips of what we shot today. Then they send it to the producers so they can prove that they're working, I guess. I don't know. But then the producers would collaborate that into weeklies and send those up the line. And somehow Al got us access to those weeklies. So we got to see a ton of clips from the movie before it was like even in post-production. So
right.
That was, we got like
that
really
was so helpful. Yeah.
I remember in Zombieland, there was the naked celebrity cameo. There's going to be a naked celebrity in this. I can't tell you who, but I guess you remember.
Yeah, he was
for some reason.
So much information that he knew. Sometimes he could like show us things, but not let us keep them. But when you made the second James Bond game based on the movie Quantum of Solace, we knew that both the movie and the game were to open with a torture scene. And David, you animated that torture scene.
That's Jason's project, right?
Like that was Steven. Steven was on Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, I was gonna say Steve Lawson was the Bond program.
Oh wait, Jason has another Bond.
Bond versus Bond.
Bond versus Bond.
Top agent.
Yeah. Jason's top agent. Steve was Quantum Solace, and Ben was Casino Royale. I thought, because I remember Casino Royale had the infamous torture scene.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got them mixed up.
I mean, the movie. I don't remember what was in the game. Maybe Quantum Solace, the game, had a torture scene.
Well, the game opened, I believe, with a torture scene.
Okay.
And you break out, and then you start running across the rooftops.
That did happen. I remember you.
And so I had seen that torture scene rendered in pixel art so many times that when I finally saw the movie, I was like, this should have been shot from a side view. Why is the camera moving around?
Yeah, right.
I wanted, like, this is supposed to be seen from the side. Like, that's how you see the most drama. But the camera just keeps cutting to different angles. Like, what's up with this?
Where are the pixels?
Which should tell you that eventually you will tell us about the people you work with. And the longer it takes, the more painful we'll make it.
I thought that was a good opening to that game, though. It was so much more dynamic than some of what we'd been doing.
Yeah, it was cinematic.
Yeah, that run across the rooftops was a lot of fun to design. I think that was the first level that I designed for that game, which was the first game that I worked on.
Yeah, that was very frenetic.
I really liked there was 2 stealth levels in that game, and I don't know, I got bursts of inspiration for both of those, and I'm still really proud of how those both turned out. That was a lot of fun.
It's like you duck into a doorway, and then when someone walks by you,
you just pull them in,
snap their neck, yeah. And then you see their shoes like tumble out of the doorway.
Yeah.
That's all that's left of them.
Yeah, that's right.
So they are trying to make it look like the Tom Clancy games, right? What they call it, that spy games. I think we have like one big competitor. I forgot the name. I don't think it's Blue Games. I think someone else.
There was
like
Blue,
games.
and then there was like Game Loft came around.
Game Loft. Like they make the Prince of Persia. They make this like, other than us, they're the ones who can make this very complicated game mechanic. I think they make the Tom Clancy one, the Splinter Cell, right?
Yeah, they were funded by Ubisoft, so they were like an Ubisoft studio, so they got a lot of money for making.
And it's a big team. If you look at their credits, it's like 30 people working on that one mobile game, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we have like 5.
5 people, and they were just porting to iPhone and Android, I think, at the time, right?
Yep.
So we were porting to like 1,100 devices per project.
Oh, I found Underworld: Rise of the Lycans for Android. It exists.
Nice.
Existed.
Wow.
I
don't remember if I had input on that or what it was. I just remember we'd gotten a bunch of assets that I got to look through.
Yeah, I think it was like, hey, make this as quickly as possible, as simply as possible.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's a tiny, crappy image, but that's what I could find.
Okay, that's definitely ringing a bell now.
Nice.
So many memories from that short period of time because we worked on such a myriad of different projects.
So let's wrap this one up. I feel like I want to be respectful of folks' time.
Well, thanks everybody. Great job.
Yep.
Yeah, great to catch up with y'all and reminisce about our super fun, crazy projects.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, hopefully we'll do another one soon.
Yeah. I'd love that.
All righty.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
See you later.